Hello everybody and welcome back to Juno New Origins, where I have a bit of a theory here. And before I go into that, I want to do a little bit of testing here, because first things first, I want to know, are we draining jet fuel from the upper wings? That is question number one. So if we are, that's great. That has nothing to do with my theory, but that is definitely a big question here. So let's keep an eye on this fuel. Yes, we are draining fuel from this upper wing, I believe. Yeah, we definitely are. Okay, now our main issue is and remains this sideways drifting, right? And I mean, you can see that our payload is not very well attached. But my theory is this. The sideways drifting is caused by the lift from the wings reducing the amount of traction, perhaps unevenly, that the wheels have. That is my theory. Now, I don't have proof for that. But you can see it gets worse as we get closer to taking off. Now, I believe that if we are in the air, that will not happen. That's my theory anyway. So currently we're in a situation where we've got multiple issues, right? But I think this is honestly viable. Out of curiosity, if we were able to hit that ramp at a decent amount of speed without spinning out of control. But the few times, okay, that didn't go well. The few times that we have been up in the air, it has seemed quite controllable once it gets off the ground. So my theory is simply that we need to get off the ground, and once that happens, it's all good. So let's pull this back. We know that we have pretty decent control once we are actually in flight. So I want to go into the build here, and we can definitely see if we can definitely think about maybe moving our wings forward a little bit, but I'm not sure that that's strictly speaking necessary here. Okay. Center of lift is significantly higher than I thought it was. Probably because of the addition of these wings. So that means that these wings should be moved down a fair amount. So I'm going to set these to like -1 down here. And then these wings would need to move to like 1. It's better, but it's not ideal in terms of the center of mass versus center of lift. Okay, so this doesn't really change my overall theory of why we're having the sideways spin. Okay, so let's go ahead and throttle this on up. And also, with our steering wheels being these front wheels, this ends up meaning that as we attempt to nose up, these have less and less traction on them, right? So this is a lot of swinging side to side, and I think some of it is caused by how loosely the payload is held, and I think some of it is... Okay, that was very interesting there. Okay. I'm running this purely off of the turbines right now. I'm not trying to have any engine power from the wheels, and I think that's part of it as well, for the record, is that the wheels lose traction unevenly. I'm pretty sure that that's what we've got going on here. I think that the wheels lose traction unevenly, and that's not great. Now, I'd like to use this up here as a ramp to try to get up and to try to get up and off of the ground. I guess we'll see if this happens. I don't think we have enough speed built up. Whoa, that was exciting. Hang on. Okay, we're trying to nose up here, and it's not working because we don't have enough speed built up. But that's a very interesting result there, isn't it? Because that's, other than the nose up issue, that's a pretty stable flight. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come into these wheels back here. And I'm just going to completely remove any amount of motor on them. This is going to do a couple of things. One, this is going to reduce our overall mass for the plane. And two, this is going to mean that they are no longer contributing to the attempt to take off. What I want to see is, does this reduce the amount of side-to-side motion or not? Because if my assumption is correct, some of it, not all of it, but some of the side-to-side motion issue is caused by having uneven amounts of torque on the ground. Again, we only expect some of that to be the case because the payload is another potential problem, right? Okay, that's definitely noted. So the payload is another issue, the way that it rocks around like that. I do want to address the payload, for sure. That is something that I want to do. And I'd like to get up onto that ramp, but that is not going to happen. Okay. Way too much side-to-side motion here still. Noted. Okay. So we have no torque whatsoever in these wheels. That's understood. What we need right now is to just build up a... Okay, that's always exciting. What we need right now is to just build up a large amount of speed in a straight line. So that didn't go quite as well as I had hoped that it would. I'd hoped that it would be a little bit more controllable. But alas, it was not. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these wheels. I'm going to replace them with wings, although they're not going to be this size of wings. So I want them to be like that, and I also want to turn them around. So we're going to angle them like this. And then in terms of size, we're going to bring them back to like here, and then to like here. And these are going to be fairly small elevons, is the idea. So I want them to be something kind of like this. And I'm not sure if we even want them to have a control surface. So let's see what that has done to our center of lift. Actually, that's kind of decent. As far as control surfaces go, I wouldn't mind them having one connected to pitch, I think. Let's see how that feels. That will add some additional lift. And it'll add some lift at the front of the vehicle, which is what we've needed when we have gotten airborne. We've not been able to lift the nose. So that's been a significant issue there. Now, I don't expect that that's going to fix our sideways drift issue on takeoff. The sideways drift issue is going to remain a significant one. I think a big part of that is simply the payload moving. I'd hoped that it would be solidly attached onto that interstage, but apparently it is not. Oh, that was exciting. Okay, that was a lot more controllable, wasn't it? That was interesting. That was very interesting. I kind of wish that we could fit this onto the village pad. Because if we could, then we'd be able to at least do flight characteristics testing rather than takeoff testing, because it has that ramp into the large drop-off. Yeah, this is definitely still trying to go side to side. And I'm noticing that the elevons in the front are inverted. Okay, so it appears to be that we get the spin when we attempt... Yeah, when we attempt to lift off. Okay, so first thing we need to do is we clearly need to invert the elevons on the front here. So we need to go into here. We need to invert the control surfaces. There we go. Now, the next thing that I would like to do is I'd like to actually duplicate this and have one, like, here to help hold it. And then one, like, up in the front as well. So this is not attached here. It's intended to just hold it, right? Make it so that it can't really move as much. It might still be able to move this way a little bit. We'll see how that feels. That might help the payload stability a little bit. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to look to take this off. Okay, yeah, it's definitely still moving side to side. It's not moving back and forth nearly so much. But side to side is still an issue, for sure. Okay, let's just work on getting this up to speed. For the moment, I'm not attempting to lift our nose at all. I'm just trying to get us up to speed for this drop-off up here. Oh, that spin was not great. Hang on. Hang on. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Okay, so that's hilarious. No doubt about that. It's still going to take us a very long time to fly the 1,030 kilometers to this ground station, but that's pretty funny. Don't nose up this much, please. No, don't nose up this much. Keep the nose at like 5-ish degrees. Or try to, anyway. Okay, let's change our rotation here a bit. Now, I don't know if we have enough fuel here. That's a big question at this moment. Do we have the fuel to do this? Okay, let's try to hold this pitch at like 20 degrees. It likes to drop the nose for sure. And it looks like it likes to drift, or rather list off to one side like this, rotationally. Okay. Now our top speed is not very high, at about 200 meters per second. I am concerned about a couple of things at this time. However, our flight characteristics are surprisingly not one of them. Issue number one. I am not convinced that deployment of this is going to be very functional. Issue number two. I'm very not convinced that we have enough fuel to get there, considering we burned 10% of our fuel, and that's the distance that we've covered. So there's that. Our overall surface speed is capping out at around 197 meters per second. Now, this thing is not very aerodynamic, right? That's for sure. That's absolutely for sure. But if we look at how far we have to go here, it's quite a distance. We at least have to make it to here, but because we took the motors out of these wheels, that means that we are exclusively powered by these engines. So, if we run out of fuel, that's bad. That means essentially that Yuri here is going to have to get out and pull the whole thing. He can probably do that because it's in neutral, but it would be an incredibly slow process. That's for sure. Now, we have 85% fuel at this point, and as you can see, we've traveled roughly 30 kilometers. I don't know. I'm on 2x speed now, and this is flying very stably. Very, very, very stably. So that's all well and good. I'm just wondering, our fuel usage is dropping? That might be because our altitude is changing, but that should even itself out, in theory. So this is down to 990 kilometers distance, and we can see that we're down to 80% fuel at this time. So the question is, do we have enough fuel to get there? And if we don't, how would we go about getting there? Yuri could pull it with the grappling hook, and it would probably work, but I'm not sure how we'd go about steering it. One thing we may want to consider doing, strongly consider doing even, is putting the motors back in, at least on one set of wheels, either the front or the rear wheels. That definitely might be something we want to consider doing. Okay. So our altitude is climbing a little bit, and you'll notice that our speed is going up as well. So this is 968 kilometers away at this point. That's going down reasonably quickly. I'm just looking at how much distance we've traveled and how much fuel we've burned to do it, and I'm thinking we've burned 25% fuel to travel 60 kilometers. That's concerning, right? But I think that that's not necessarily the whole story. The takeoff consumed a lot of fuel. That's for sure. The takeoff consumed a significant amount of fuel. So then the question is, how are we doing now? Well, we've traveled another 10 kilometers on roughly 3% fuel. So I don't think that we have enough fuel to pull this off. Would we have enough fuel to make it to here? I don't know about that. It feels pretty I'm shocked this is working as well as it does, to be clear. This is remarkable that we got this far. Absolutely remarkable. Now, as far as landing this thing goes, that shouldn't be that challenging. It should land just fine off-road, and we just need to pick a relatively large flat area to land it. But we would need to make it all the way across the ocean, and we don't have motors in our wheels. That's the big issue that I see going forward right now, is the lack of motors in the wheels is problematic. I'm shocked at how well this is flying, though. It's very functional. Very, very functional. All we needed was these guys right up over here, and that did the trick. So that's perfect. I have no problem with the flight characteristics. The issues at this time are as follows. I have significant concerns about fuel quantity. That is issue number one. You can see we're down to 2/3 fuel. We have 900 kilometers to go. So significant issues about fuel economy and whether we can even make it across the ocean. And once we get there, I think that we should probably have motors on these wheels. I really, really do think that. So that's all well and good, right? But what does that mean for this particular flight? Well, not very much, to be honest. I kind of want to just keep going here and see how far we get to know how much more fuel we might need. Also, does this have fuel in it? It does, and it's being drained. Okay, so that is noted. Now we need to keep in mind here, as this fuel gets burned out, our craft mass is dropping. We're at 58.2 tons right now. I honestly didn't think we'd get this far. I didn't think we'd get this thing off the ground this episode, but we did. The main question remains, do we have enough fuel in this? And when we land, do we want motors in these wheels? The answer has to be yes. At least some of the wheels we want motors in. So I think we should probably take this back, but the main problem, we can see that we've got about 31 minutes of burn time here. The main problem is I want to know if we need to add more fuel or not. I'm thinking we probably do. I wish we could go up faster than 2x. I really wish we could. In KSP, we'd be able to go to 4x, and that would make this go a lot faster. I want to know how far this can get, though. Because then we'll know how much fuel needs to be added. Is there jet fuel in these fins? No. I don't think we can have jet fuel in fins, either. I think that's a wings thing. Okay. So, I mean, our speed is slowly increasing as our craft goes down. Our thrust to weight is increasing. But even so, I'm shocked we got off the ground. Now, we didn't get off the ground with, like, a nominal liftoff, right? We used a drop-off in order to get off the ground, but that's absolutely fine. And you can see here, this is starting to go down reasonably quickly. But I don't think we have enough jet fuel to do this. I still don't. We're at 55% jet fuel at the moment, and we've traveled like 200 kilometers, right? So I have a sneaking suspicion that we're going to require more jet fuel, which could significantly change our mass calculations here. But at the very least, I think this is proven viability. Although this is still saying 27.1 minutes of burn time here. 27 more minutes. That's a lot of burn time yet. That feels like that's more burn time than we should have. So let's assume that we are going to travel at the same speed that we're going right now, right? And that is going to be 223 meters per second. So if we by 26 minutes, so that's by 26, we need to convert that into seconds. So 26 times, what is, clear this, hang on, times 60, okay. That by 223 meters per second was what we were at when we did that calculation to start with. So that is 348 kilometers of additional range in theory, and that rings about true. So in that case, we would get roughly halfway on the fuel that we have. So if we look here, we can see roughly halfway would put us about here. We're going to have some amount of glide distance, but it's not going to be very far. Okay. So as long as we make it here, right, and we have the engines, we can theoretically drive the rest of the way. But that would be a very long drive, no doubt about that. And we would definitely prefer to fly to like here or so and then seek to land somewhere around the ground station and just drive a very, very small distance the rest of the way. Now, it looks like our nose is starting to go down a little bit here, and yeah, we're losing a little bit of altitude. I'm not necessarily shocked by that. Okay, so we know that I think we're not quite going to make it to here. I think we're going to be ending up hitting the water somewhere around here or so, would be the theory. But this is definitely a proof of concept. So we could switch this from being battery to being jet fuel, but that's probably not going to be enough jet fuel to get us the other half distance. We could potentially increase the size of that, but we're going to run into diminishing returns down here. We could put some drop tanks here and here, potentially, underneath. In addition, we could put some tanks down this way, which would pull down our center of mass, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, I don't think. I think we'd have to look into that. Okay. Well, this is definitely a good proof of concept. I think a couple of things are definitely for sure from here. One, we need more fuel. Two, I do want to have motors in at least some of the wheels. So I'm going to come in here and we're going to put in a fairly low amount of torque in these lower wheels here. And then the gear ratio, higher values result in more torque, but lower RPM. Okay. So I'd like this to be, you know, somewhere around here or so. And let's just put that out on the runway real quick here. I'm not even going to fire up the turbojets. I want to see what our acceleration is like. It works. It's not amazing, but it works. Okay, so this is definitely enough to, in theory, get us to where we want to go. But the main problem is what happens if we're in rough terrain and we need torque. We don't really know what the terrain that we're going to be looking at looks like, right? So let's pull this back again and let's put this roughly where we were previously. So that was a gear ratio of 10 with a torque of being like here. Like that. So we're just putting these back in, and then the question is, are we still going to be able to... Yeah, no issue there. Okay. Are we still going to be able to take off with those motors there? Now, we're going to need to have some jet fuel. I'd kind of like to swap this guy over to, instead of being battery, I want to swap this over to being jet fuel. And this is not a lot of jet fuel. It is more jet fuel than is in here, though, so there's that. And I'd like to increase the size of this somewhat to, like, 0.5 meter. And then, like, 0.5 meter here. Like that. Now we're going to have to change the positioning of it some. Because it's sticking through on the wrong side here. Oh, that's moving the entire thing. Okay, yeah, we're going to have to not change those sizes. We're going to have to put different tanks in here. Okay, that's fine. So this is currently jet fuel. That'll get us a little bit more range, but we're certainly going to need more than that. So in that case, let's think about some drop tanks over here. So I want to have this guy be here, and then we would have this Y position is fine. I'm going to put the X position at like -1, and the Z position at 0. There we go. And then now we're going to put in a fuel tank attached to that. Now, obviously, this is going to need to be shrunk down. So we're going to have this be like 1/4 meter or so. And then the overall length of it will need to be quite a bit longer. Somewhere around there and around there. And how much jet fuel would this contain? Okay. So we could definitely have a series of these. Interesting. So then we would take this guy and we would turn on... Not like that. We would not do it that way. I would just duplicate it and we would do it this way. So we know that this needs to be at these positions. I can't actually click on it. There we go. So -1, we'll do -1 and 0. So this should be at 1, -1, 0. And then we duplicate this guy, and that would go in right there, although that positioning isn't the same. So the Z position is at like -0.5. -0.45, I guess. 0.45. There we go. So that would get us some additional jet fuel, and we can have a number of these here, right? So we can have this at -0.5, and then this would be at 0.5, and then we can have at least 2 more of these on each side, and then we can jettison those as they get empty. So the fuel priority here would be it would drain... Yeah, we would have this be at, like, priority 2, and it would drain these first, and then we'd jettison these, and so on and so forth. So we would have a number of fuel tanks here that would be dropped as they get emptied, and that would give us a significant amount of further range. In theory. I don't know what this will do to our overall flight characteristics and whether we'll be able to take off with these changes, but for now, it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to add some more fuel to this thing, see if we can still take off with it, which we probably can, and see if we have the range. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Andy McGar, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Xenocyte, Hiro Marutsu, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.